Hello and welcome back. Today we are taking a look at the comic anthologies for Stingray. So, without further ado, anything can happen in the next few minutes. Here we have the Stingray comic anthologies released by or published by Anderson Entertainment. I believe both of these were released last year, with the Deadly Uprising comic collection just being released in the last week or so. We'll cover this one a bit later. For those who don't know, Stingray was a Super Marionation show which aired during 1960, or first aired during 1964. Super Marionation being highly advanced puppets by the mind of Jerry Anderson, who created other shows like Thunderbirds, Captain Scarlet, Space Precinct, and many others. I think for anyone who's looking for a comparison, you could almost say he was the British answer to Gene Roddenberry, maybe. He created a load of fantastic works which are reaching their 60th anniversary over the last couple of years. During Stingray's run and afterwards, it received a number of comic publications, namely through the very popular children's comic at the time, TV Century 21. TV Century 21 was done as a newspaper style kids magazine with comic strips of various popular shows throughout. It would also eventually include comic strips for the Daleks from Doctor Who. With the 60th anniversary last year, Anderson Entertainment finally collected all of the comics, or at least I believe this is all of the comics published from the 1960s up to present, in two wonderful anthology sets. The first one being Tales from the Depth. This included the comics from TV Century 21, along with some brand new comic strips from Deadly Uprising. I will cover Deadly Uprising and everything else at the end of this. So first up, let's take a look at the Tales from the Depth anthology. Opening it up, we get a double page of Stingray silhouettes. This is a gorgeous coffee table sized book with thick glossy pages, wonderfully hardbound. Opening it up, we get a contents page which summarizes all of the comics included. First up, you'll see we get The Monster Jellyfish, which was published in issues 1 to 7 of TV 21. We get some gorgeous new artwork here. We get an introduction which looks at the history of bringing Stingray and other properties to comic form via TV Century 21's comic strips. Due to its popularity, Stingray got double center double pages in full color, as you can see here. So this is the first strip for the Monster Jellyfish. There is some gorgeous artwork throughout, as you can see, which is very reminiscent of a lot of the artwork from English artists at the time. It was gorgeously done. Interestingly enough, this also juxtaposed actual photo stills from episodes. This was used primarily as establishment shots for the comic strips. But you can see throughout there was some really lovely artwork done. It goes then moves on to other stories throughout, each equally containing some wonderful artwork throughout its strips. Between certain stories is modern or recent new comic strips written for the Deadly Uprising series, which, as I said, I'll cover later on. So there's some really wonderful art and stories throughout this. If you're familiar at all with 60s British comic strips, I think you'll agree that there was some very interesting and wonderful art and stories coming out during that period of time. A lot of effort was being put into kids' comics and magazines in England in a way that just doesn't exist anymore. You can see throughout the sort of strips and artwork we were expecting. Slowly, as the popularity for Stingray died and other popular shows took its place, Stingray moved from its centre pages to later in the Century 21 comics, and instead got black and white strips for the remainder of its run in the magazine. This is obviously a cost process during the 60s. But despite being in black and white, the comics don't lose any of their beauty. You can see throughout there is some really gorgeous artwork constantly being presented here. Then at the very back we get a cross-sell of Stingray, showing how it works. This is very different to the ones which were being produced in the 90s, but it's similar enough. It's still a wonderful looking art piece. We then get a brief look at how Stingray was made before some closing art of Stingray destroying a mechanical fish. And there we have volume 1 of the comic anthology. As I think you will agree, there is some gorgeous art throughout that. It's been wonderfully presented. A real lot of love and care has been gone into making these for the fans. The second book is Battle Lines, taking its strips from the Countdown magazine along with the I've forgotten the name of the magazine, the kids magazine, which ran during the Fleetway, that's it, the Fleetway publications during the early 90s. So again, it's presented in very much the same format as volume 1. We get a introduction looking at Stingray, how it stood in its publications during 1968. We get some covers here. We get the look at the black and white comics being presented at the time. Interestingly, that there were cutaway sections with ads throughout, which is very different to what had been presented before. But we're still getting some wonderful artwork and effort being put into these stories here. Moving through, you can see that we get some more strips related to the Deadly Uprising. A feature on Stingray's special extras. The popularity of the specials seasonal editions of newsstand comics wasn't lost on city magazines. So it's the sort of almost like annual specials that were being published during the 60s. Get some more artwork. Eventually, even Marina gets her own comic strip in what I believe was a prequel to the series. And I think she could even talk in places during this run. We certainly get some more features and articles on the runs. Here we get Marina presented in colour, where she's actually able to talk. We get more of Deadly Uprising. Definitely a lot more new artwork here, which is absolutely gorgeous. Then eventually, moving on towards the end of the book, is the Fleetway comics. So those who are familiar, in the early 90s, a lot of the Gerry Anderson shows saw a revival on the BBC, starting with Thunderbirds and carrying on with Stingray, Captain Scarlet, etc., etc. During that time, due to their popularity, once again, the series has got their own comics. Very typical kids comics from the 90s with free gifts each issue. And they would have, more often than not, comic strips included. And while the comic strips were certainly new artwork and some wonderful artwork nonetheless, these stories were often retellings of episodes as they had actually aired on TV. So the first one is The Plant of Doom, which was the second story. You can see we get Hostages of the Deep, etc. Eventually, the Stingray comic was merged with Thunderbirds, and it became Thunderbirds and Captain Scarlet all together. And then you can see that we even got some stories in the Funday Times. So these were newspaper ones. So there we have the two anthologies from Anderson Entertainment for Stingray, both of which are absolutely wonderful books. They've been gorgeously presented with a lot of love, thought and care put into them. There's some interesting articles in them. The reprints of the original comics look fantastic. And then finally, as we saw, there were a collection of new comic strips under the Deadly Uprising subtitle. These have now been collected as a single graphic novel. So, for those who aren't familiar, Deadly Uprising was a multimedia event last year created to bring new stories to the Stingray universe, set post series. Presented a new series of stories across multiple platforms, starting with a live action performance during the Standby for Action concert. There was a number of mini episodes aired on YouTube. We got a couple of novels with I can't remember the names. It is the Titanian Stratagem, along with the Project Orca. So the story primarily focuses around the villain Titan looking to create a coalition of various marine civilizations to finally defeat the Marineville and the people of the surface. This is the collected individual stories or comic strips which wove in and out of the various multimedia presentations. So you can see here we get some really nice artwork done. It's definitely a modern art, very different to what was being presented in the 60s and throughout. But nonetheless, it is wonderfully done with some various art across from multiple artists. You get a series of different short mini stories being presented. And as we saw at the front of the book, it does give us a timeline, so if you want to read everything in chronological order, you can. But as far as I'm aware, all of the various stories are presented in a mostly standalone position with an overarching plot. And then at the end of the book, we get a collection of the art we were seeing in the anthologies. So there we have the 3 books from Anderson Entertainment. I love all 3 of them. They look fantastic, really well presented, and I'm so glad to have these in my collection. If you're a fan of Stingray, these are an absolute must. If you're interested in British comics from the 60s, I would recommend these as well, especially the TV21 stuff. If you're new to Stingray, then this seems like an odd starting place, and I'd highly recommend seeking out the Blu-rays, which I recently got, and the attention to upscaling of those has been amazing. But otherwise, I hope you have enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching. Stay safe, and I will be back soon.